Hey everyone, in this video we're going to continue our series on short grammar lessons with kind of a basic question. How do we ask yes or no questions in Latin? So the reason I'm saying this is it's something that comes up in the new textbook I'm using, the Road to Latin textbook, but it's also something that I feel like my students struggle with at the beginning of their Latin career. They always ask me, and they're like, Mr. C, why don't we speak in Latin? Right? And we do, right? The answer is that you absolutely can speak in Latin, and you should, right? It's good. Practice that skill. It helps you think a little bit differently. So I'm not sure if you are or aren't doing that in class. That's kind of the choice of your teacher and their style. But whenever you can, try to speak in Latin. It's a language. You absolutely can do it. And having this, this concept of how to ask yes or no questions is really important for conversational Latin. The trick is we don't always do it a lot, and a lot of textbooks don't necessarily explain how you can do this early on. So I like to teach it a little bit early on to my younger kids just so they can get the sense of it and we can do more things in terms of speaking Latin. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can do that. And I'll preface this by saying this doesn't cover how to ask questions in Latin, any questions. It's specifically yes or no questions. You can ask a question in Latin just like in English by just putting a question mark at the end of your sentence. You don't need this style or this tactic. It's just for yes or no questions. And you'll see what I mean in a second. So to start, how do we ask questions in Latin? Well, we have a problem of word order in terms of English. So in English, right, you can just switch the word order around and go from you are tired sentence to are you tired question. That really doesn't work all the time in Latin because the word order is a lot more flexible. Okay, so in Latin, when you're asking a yes or no question, there's actually three methods you can use for asking these yes or no questions, right? It's the enclitic ne, and then the words num and nonne. Okay, and I'll go through all three of them, what they mean in this video, starting with ne. Okay, so ne is called an enclitic. It doesn't really translate to anything in English. It's not really a word. An enclitic is just something that gets attached to the end of a word, usually the most important word in a sentence. And when you're dealing with yes or no questions, it usually comes at the beginning of the sentence. So I'll show you what I mean. When you put any, ne, on the end of a word, right, to introduce a Latin question, it means you're just asking a simple yes or no question. You're not sure what the answer is going to be. The answer has an equal shot, right, 50-50 shot of being either yes or no. You're not anticipating either one. Okay, so if you were to say in Latin, for example, laboratne agricola, right, you're asking, is the farmer working? The answer you're anticipating is either yes or no, right? It's a yes or no question. If you had agricola laborat, that just means the farmer is working, right? But when you flip it around to a question, you really are making it yes or no. You just stick an ne, the enclitic, on the end of the first word, right? A lot of times it's the verb, and that indicates to your listener or your reader that you're asking this yes or no type question. The second method you could use, or the second word, is nonne, right? So nonne is used to start a question when you're expecting a yes answer. So sometimes we translate it as surely in English, but it looks like this. You could say nonne agricola laborant, right? And you can translate it as isn't the farmer working? But when you say nonne, you're expecting yes, right? You kind of know the farmer is working. So, maybe you'd say like, where's the farmer? Oh, isn't he working? You're expecting it to be a yes answer. The surely in English is something that I use in my classes. It kind of gets at that. So if you said, surely the farmer is working, right? It implies that the answer needs to be yes. So when you're expecting a yes answer, but you are technically asking a yes or no question, just put nonne at the beginning of it. And that's how you could, indicate that you're expecting a yes. The opposite of nonne is num. Right, so num is used when you're or asking a question, right? We're expecting no to be the answer. So again, we put it at the beginning, but it's the opposite of nonne. You're not expecting yes, even though you are asking a yes or no question. You're distinctly expecting no. So if you were to say num agricola laborat, right? The way you can translate is kind of put like is blank at the end. So like for instance here, you could say the farmer isn't working, is he? Right? The num kind of gives that negation element, right? So he's not working, but it means you're expecting a no, right? So maybe you just found out, maybe someone said something like, oh, I gave the farmers the day off, okay? And then you see, you hear about a farmer, you say, wait, the farmer isn't working, is he? Right? You're expecting them to say no, and then you can be like, oh, good, yeah, I figured that he's not going to be working, okay? So nonne and num, different sides of the same spectrum, right? One way to think about it is the ne, the ne, is kind of neutral, could be yes or no. Nonne, you're expecting a yes. Num, you're expecting a no, okay? So hopefully that makes some sense, right? And it's not too overwhelming. It's the three options of asking a yes or no question. So I think it would be good to do some examples right now, just so you can see this in action, all right? So for instance, if you were to ask in Latin, esne villa romana, right? You're asking, is it a Roman house or is the house Roman? The NE is telling you there's a 50-50 shot of it being Roman or something else. It's a very basic yes or no question, right? Is it a Roman house? But if we switch it and make it nonne villa romana columnos habet, the nonne means you're expecting a yes. So you're saying something like, surely a Roman house, right, a villa romana has columns, right? You're almost putting the word right at the end of it because you're expecting a yes answer. Here's the opposite. You have num casa columnas habet, right? The house doesn't have columns, does it? You're expecting it to be a no answer, okay? That's why you have num. Here's another one. Habetne domina angulas. You're saying, does the mistress have slave women? Again, the any enclitic means you're not sure, yes or no. It's a legit question, and there's kind of an equal chance of it being yes or no. Here's another one. You have nonne anculae laborant. You're saying, surely the slave women are working, right? It's expecting a yes answer, right? Because the slave women are always supposed to be working. So you're asking a yes or no question, but it would be surprising if the answer was no. Right? That's why we have nonne, and you can translate in English as surely. And lastly, we have num est villa parva, right? Again, num means you're expecting a no answer. So you're saying the house isn't small, is it? Okay, you're really expecting the answer to be no, and you would be surprised if it was a yes answer. All right, so that's the basics of it. There's really not a lot more to it than that. That's the most kind of simple way of thinking about it. So to do a quick recap, you have three ways to ask yes or no questions in Latin. The enclitic ne, right? That's when you put it at the most important word of a sentence, usually the beginning of a question. And it means you're just asking a simple yes or no question, right? You're not sure what the answer is going to be. Nonne starts a question when yes is the anticipated answer, and num starts a question when no is the anticipated answer. So again, feel free to use these in some conversational Latin, right? The more you use them, the more comfortable you're going to be. You might be using a textbook that uses these to ask you questions in Latin about the story of your chapter if you're doing a reading method book. So hopefully this is something you're getting more familiar with, but even if it's something that you don't do in class, try it out, right? It's kind of fun to have these yes or no questions or the ways of forming yes or no questions in your back pocket. That way you can start speaking Latin, right? Bring it to life a little bit. And, even if you're not doing that in class with a teacher, you can still do it at home or at least practice it. There's nothing stopping you. So this is how you do it. Hopefully you give it a shot and you're feeling pretty comfortable with it. Good luck.